That's crazy.
Oh, Randy's here.
Oh, snap. Hey!
Oh, look at this. Oh, my God. And he's getting help.
That was so perfect that like the video kicks on and it's Randy getting tech help.
Yeah, Randy doesn't need tech help except when the laptop belongs to his daughter.
I'm not interested in facts. I'm interested in jokes, sir.
Don't muddle our jokes with your facts.
How is everyone?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, not bad.
Bored.
I'm not dead and my liver hasn't failed yet, so like that's a win.
Yeah,
Bonus
it hasn't
rounds,
killed me
yeah.
yet. I'm good.
Working on that. Working on that.
Teetotaling tonight, thank you.
I'm
Randy.
still preparing water. Someday we'll
All
fight
right.
again.
I think
Randy,
we have our first stupid person who's going to waste their Wednesday evening.
Oh, and another one.
I thought we had 6 of them right here.
Hey! No, we wasted an entire year or more.
Super Trooper.
All right. So we got here. So I'm on the fence about unmuting everyone or just leaving them. I'd rather just keep in the chat so it doesn't get nutty.
If we get like a lot of people care.
Yeah,
If
I mean,
not-
I guess I can,
Otherwise,
depending on how many we get, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, chat's real big now.
There we go.
Over here.
You guys there?
I'm here.
How you guys doing tonight? Unmuted. Yeah, okay. You okay there, Ivan?
It's just grooving to the background noise. I mean, it was like very hypnotic.
Oh.
that sounds like it's Natalie's little girl.
Those two little ones are awesome.
Agreed. So, Randy, real quick, I got a blast for you. Remember this?
Oh, yeah.
Holy jeez.
I should have worn my new shirt.
You got a new one?
Yeah, Karen got me a new shirt. It's flattened across the top, which nobody understands. And then in the very bottom, in English, it says, you really should learn how to block that.
Suckers.
Oh, man. All right, well, looks like it's 7 o'clock almost. I guess you guys can start whipping those questions out anytime you want out there. So,
Let's see how poorly we answer.
yeah. Curious to see how many people.
I'm trying to find that link to the change still.
I couldn't get the damn PDF to load the other night, so I gave up.
Oh, hang on.
Where did it go to originally? I can't remember.
Everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, Brennan, easy there, buddy. I want to fight.
Do-do-do-do-do.
Just adding people in.
Need more horseradish, Brennan?
Brennan, you muted yourself.
Yeah, because Bubba was being crazy pants.
Oh, is that who that was? All right. I was
No, like the
No, it
kids
wasn't.
screaming.
That was-
It was not my Brian screaming, but right after that, he started, and I was like,
My kids, unfortunately, were acting up at that point.
All good.
It's not like we don't understand.
Well, I mean, my dogs don't make that noise.
Yeah, but your dogs complain about you making that noise.
Oh, well, duh. Only when Jackie's yelling at me. All right. Well, I guess if anyone has a question, feel free, fire it off in the chat, or go ahead and speak up. We're just pretty much chit-chatting here, waiting for people to join in. So,
all right, Mr. Host with the most, why don't you do some intros?
everybody, that's Brennan. Brennan, this is everybody. So, the Roses recently didn't ask me anything, and someone brought it up there asking if the former Kings would be interested in doing it. I was like, sure, that's fine by me. So I put it out there, and this is the motley crew we had decided to join. We have His Grace Randal, His Grace Brennan, Count Ivan, Count Thorson, Count Ozurr, and Count me. It's actually going to be interesting because we've all reigned with big different time frames between them. So it could be really interesting to see the variety of perceptions and experiences and stuff like that. So if you have a question specifically aimed towards someone, just note it and say this is for so-and-so. Other than that, we're not all big on, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm not exactly big on formalities. So if you have a question, if someone's already talking, throw it in the chat, and we'll just go from there. So looks like someone's got someone in there already. Let's see. What was the one thing that truly surprised you about being crowned? So who wants to field that one first?
Truly surprised.
I'll start if no. I would go first. Aside from the winning of it, if you see by the pictures, like right after, it was pretty shocking faces. But it was like seeing another side of Pennsic and seeing like the work side of Pennsic way more. Before that, I had seen like the work side inside of like individual camps, like helping people or like being a squire to a knight and things like that. But seeing like the actual like work side of Pennsic that goes into it every year, that like surprised me. Like it's one of those things that's always floating above your head, like you can't have an event that's this big without there being a ton of logistics involved, but to like know that it's there and then to actually see it and be a part of it like is a big difference. So that's something that I guess I would say was kind of surprising.
Anyone else have one they want to chime in? I know mine was, I think mine was, well, we used to travel a lot just doing events and stuff like that, but just the sheer size of this damn kingdom, traveling, you don't really realize it till you're doing it pretty much every weekend. Going from corner to corner and putting, 50,000 miles on your vehicles, and that was a surprise at just geographically how big this kingdom is, and the variety of differences between the regions and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's legit. When you're flying up to Nova Scotia,
Yep.
into a different time zone,
Yep.
in your own kingdom.
Okay, guys, I got to put this in perspective. The last time I reigned, Ethelbert was still part of the East, as was Drakenwald.
Oh,
And Drakenwald.
wow.
As was Drakenwald. Yep.
All right.
And rocks
Yeah.
were soft.
No, that's
Yeah,
and
rocks were soft.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got here. What was
I think the thing that's really surprising to me around the size is the pockets. Like the little places inside the kingdom where people just are sort of stuck, like Long Island on the Beguine, right? It's just very right. So the corners sort of make sense to me, but some of the places in the sort of in the middle of the kingdom where the confluence of highways just make it so that it's really difficult to go A to B. And me and Jersey end up thinking of Tirmara as this one block. And it's like, oh no, that's like 73 hours across. Okay.
Absolutely.
It wasn't just I mean, I know Randy had a similar experience because, like, you know, we were both Vermonters. So for us to actually do anything or get anywhere back in the day, because we're old, we had to do traveling anyway. So the size of the kingdom actually wasn't that big of a surprise to me. I had a squire in Nova Scotia. I had been all the way down to Delaware before. The size wasn't a big deal. What actually really surprised me was the again, going along with the pockets idea, having all of these people who had not seen royals that were close to areas that, as an outsider from that area, I had assumed that they had. Like we went to Western Pennsylvania, and they were like, "Yeah, we haven't had royals here in like 4 years," and I was just like, "What's that about?" So, like, even though you might think of a region as having more royal visits, there's always those small pockets, and it's always so surprising exactly how many different groups there are and how difficult it is to get even attention across all those areas.
It's extremely, what's surprising, another surprise in regards to all of that is all of the events that you have to go to. And then it's not even counting all the events that you would like to go to or you want to go to, and then you look at your calendar going, well, I guess we'll be traveling every single weekend.
Yeah. Let me just jump in real quick for those who just joined. I want to say welcome. If you have a question, feel free to post it up in the chat. If it's for somebody specific, just note that. Otherwise, we're just kind of tossing them out there to whomever wants to answer or jump in. So let's see. Oh, this is a good one. What was the first thing that went through your mind when you won? I mean, I know mine was, so.
Mine had 4 letters. That was it.
Yeah.
So
it's just go.
Yeah, my reaction was actually finally. It was something that I had worked towards for several years, and in my mind, I kind of had decided that it was going to happen. It was just a question of working hard enough and going for it. That being said, a lot of people have that that idea that it will happen for them at some point, and a lot of them are frustrated in the end. There are only so many crowns to go around, and there are a lot of people who want to have one.
And once you unlock the secret, like it becomes easier to replicate. Easier, not easy, but easier to replicate, and so it is harder to crack it the first time.
Yeah, that's legit.
Yep.
Once you dial it in,
it is quite the learning curve. There's no doubt. It definitely helps. It helps reigning with somebody who's either done it before or a little more experience, because there's no handbook. So that's for sure. Oof.
And every reign that goes by the handbook, just toss it out the window.
Yep.
It's good. Just keeps getting rewritten.
Yep.
I know Keelan has thought about trying to write an actual handbook.
So is Vienna, yeah.
But I don't know that you could. You could get some things these are dates you want to keep in mind for winter rains and dates for summer rains, and check these boxes. But then you get to how to actually do the job as opposed to how to administer the office. And how to do the job you can't write down because everybody does it so radically different.
That's what, like,
Yeah.
if there was a way to standardize procedures for stuff, but most of it is just on the fly a lot.
There used to be some notes and recommendations and stuff that were passed from crown to crown.
But that was on a mimeograph sheet.
Mimeograph?
Oh,
It smells so
Carbon
good.
tablets. Come on.
Microfiche.
But yeah, there used to be some recommendations and ideas and stuff. But even at that, knowing the how things were supposed to work or how things did work allowed you to get that part. But there was still, no matter what happens, you always have your own personal style on how you do things. So there can be recommendations and everything, but in the end, you have to pick and choose the stuff that is told to you and make it your own.
so I actually did get a little book. Catherine, the seneschal at the time, actually handed me a little book of saying, here, this is what you need to do. It was only like a page and a half. And I thought that was kind of awesome and hysterical because she and I had worked on like 2 or 3 reigns prior. So, we kind of already knew what was on the sheet. But most of it actually did not end up applying. We actually got a database inherited from Parsley. I don't know who all remembers her. But she actually had this awesome database where everyone had access to it. Anybody who wrote in, that award got added to the database. The kings and queens would look at it, thumbs up, thumbs down, and then it would be visible to the scheduler. And then once the scheduler scheduled it, it would be visible to the Tiger Signet and et cetera, all the way down the chain. We offered it to the next 2 or 3 reigns, and nobody wanted a part of it because they were all afraid of the technology, because back then technology was scary. And I think that's going to be the same issue that you're going to run into. Everybody has different schedules. Everyone has different methods of management. I think unless you were wanting to remove the ability for the royals to be able to choose in the manner that they do, you're never going to have a single method for running a reign. Just throwing that out there.
All right. Anyone else? We'll move on. All right. Let's see what we got here. What was the one thing you could have never been prepared for after winning crown? I can only do one.
One thing that you weren't prepared for.
That you could not. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that you could have never been prepared for.
How fast you have to start working Penzic.
Yeah.
Yep. The sheer amount of interkingdom communication and stuff like that caught me off guard. I wasn't ready for that. So
it's like get ready to introduce yourself a lot real quick to people. Like, I mean, I didn't know most of the people, but it's good because you get to make a lot of new friends through it. But it's also like okay, like here's a phone book. Like I'm like, what? Just start getting ready to start calling people and start writing and doing.
Basically, you go from being nobody or somebody to an A-line celebrity in a nanosecond.
Very true.
So the only way that you could possibly be prepared to step up and be royalty is if you're already a CEO of a company, because the responsibilities that drop on you so fast and the decisions that you have to make that are going to affect a large number of people are huge. And it's right there. Bing, you're out. Finals are over. Before they even put the coronet on your head, there are people wanting you to make decisions, and that's just how quickly it goes.
And as technology advances, so does the speed of all of that as well.
Everything that you say at that point, because as soon as you win, everything that you end up saying at that point, someone is going to take to an extreme. So you have to learn to shut up, really. You have to learn to edit out what you would say normally. And that took a bit of adjustment, but the big thing that threw me was people that I had always thought of as, you know, my buddy, my pal, my friend. All of a sudden, they saw me as something different. And I expected that from people that didn't know me. I expected that from, you know, people that kind of knew me. I was not expecting it from people who, you know, these were my drinking buddies. I traveled with them to events, and you know, we did a lot of stupid things in bars in Montreal, and all of a sudden, oh, you know, it's royalty, and that was a mind trip for me.
No, I'm gonna tag onto that quiz question again. Do you think it was always a negative connotation to it, like that they viewed you differently? That because I'd agree that I think a lot of the people view differently. I know it was different circumstances, but I guess being an unbelt that won, like a lot of that community definitely viewed me differently, but I felt a lot of positivity behind the way that they viewed me differently. So I agree, like it definitely was strange because all of the interactions are different, you know, like even if it's just someone jokingly or, you know, like giving you a little bit more like pomp than they would normally before you, but all of the interactions are going to be different. But I definitely felt a lot of positivity from the difference that there was there. Like, it was weird for me because people are like, you're instantly can be an inspiration to somebody when you didn't think you were like 2 seconds before that. And I don't think that necessarily has to do with only being an unbelt to win, but like because any one of your friends now sees that like there is some change, you know what I mean? And it's like, because you did the thing that we thought you could do or nobody thought you could do, or like that we've all been wanting to do, you know? So like now you got to do the thing. And if you could do the thing, then maybe I could do the thing too. It brings the thing slightly closer to you and makes it a little more achievable. So like I tried to look to that as like a positive aspect of the difference that the relationship change might give.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. It was mostly not negative, actually, if I misrepresented that. It's just something I wasn't prepared for.
Okay.
You know, when my boss, my knight, and I are hanging around together, and all of a sudden he calls me, "Oh, of course, Your Majesty." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa!"
Wait,
Boss.
yours did that? Oh,
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. Well, Steve's a lot cooler than most other knights.
Well,
so,
I mean, it helped that his knight was still in the society when he won, as opposed to you.
Fair enough. Why you gotta come at me like that, man?
I said us. I said us.
Fair enough.
They left together.
That's true.
I think the thing that, like, sort of the pivot off of what Thorson and Ozurr was saying was, I fell in the pit of believing my press a little, and Cullen had to, you know, remind me who I am. One evening in his garage, he's just like, "By the way, you're still a jerk, and you should knock it off." Oh, okay.
and there's a question that says, what staff should be in place before that day comes when you win?
There's one above
Just
that.
answered that. You
Oh.
should have the dude who's willing to say, "Stop being an ass."
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about the only staff. Everything else you can compile soon afterwards. You know, there's a lot of people like, "Oh, you should have a chief of staff in mind." Yeah, you should have a chief of staff in mind, but you shouldn't have one. You should have a couple people that, because you're not going to get somebody to say yes. You know, you should have 2 or 3 people to say, you know, to hit up. But that one person to knock you back, that's the person you need.
I think there's also, for us, there was also the children component. So like our last reign, I felt reasonably good about our chances. And so we made arrangements. Hey, if the day is successful, Leonette, would you help us with the kids? And that was the piece we put in place because we felt like it was irresponsible to have the shot that we had and not make arrangements for our family ahead of time.
Cool. Let's see. The one right above that was, what is your most memorable thing from your reign? And I just want to, I'm going to say it first because, you know, hell, I'm running this thing, so I don't care. The most memorable thing from my reign, and it's a very personal thing, is when we were up in Canada fighting the crown in the finals with actually his Grace Randal. After I won, his Grace Brennan put put the coronet on my head, and we did our vivats, and we broke to get changed and get ready for court. I went off to the side and just kind of kicking my, putting my armor away, getting a deep breath, and his Grace Randal called me over and asked if he could swear fealty. And as a master, first off, that was very unusual because, everyone, for those who aren't aware, masters aren't required to swear fealty. But also as someone that, I looked up to in the SCA for a very long time. I mean, this is my 31st year I've been doing this. And there's, over the years, you develop a small handful of people that you look up to and inspire you for one reason or another, or people you try to, well, for lack of a better term, grow up to be in the SCA. And his Grace Randal was one of them for me. And to have him swear fealty to me was just one of those moments that I'll never forget. And yeah, that was that one thing during my reign that just always, I'll never ever forget. So anyone else? You're gonna make me into the big baby.
I can't choose. There are many lots. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I can choose. It's not easy, but so Farrell swearing fealty was a mind blower. But above that, I made Marika cry. And that, like that's a huge thing when we made her a Tiger of the East. It was the coolest moment ever. Being able to sit there and tell people the SCA allows you to collect heroes and you can put them up on your shelves, and that's a beautiful thing. And being in that position at that time to say, this is my biggest hero. And she is. Marika's, Randy, you're important, but you're not as big as Marika.
My tiger showed up.
Yeah, nice. But yeah, that will always stick with me. And there are days when I hate the SCA and want to quit. And all I have to do is remember that day. And I'm right back in. How's that for big baby?
Good, took the pressure off me. I'm good. All right, let's see what we got here. I just saw another one pop up. We did the staff. Does anyone else have anything to add for the what staff should we have in place the day comes when you win? I mean, I guess really you just want to just have an idea in the back of your head. Nobody can plan because you never know if and when you're ever going to win.
It's kind of like an ICOP at that point.
What's that?
It's kind of like an ICOP at that point.
Yep. For those who aren't, that's in case of peerage. A lot of students, squires, proteges, etc., will be asked by their peers, saying, when the time comes, you get elevated. Who would you like to speak for you? What's a handful of events you want to get elevated at, and stuff like that. I guess it's kind of the same thing. You prepare ahead of time in the back of your brain, saying, these are organized people. Organized people. Good God, is that important? Make sure whoever you want is organized. Because, woof, that's brutal. So,
Keelan just walked by and flagged another one that I think is pretty good. Is in your head at least. Every reign, at least your first go round, you ought to have a pocket royal peer, somebody who's done it before that you can ask. Oh, how do I navigate that? So if not ahead of time, shortly after winning, figure out who's the person you're going to talk to for that stuff.
No, absolutely true. Yes.
someone you trust who won't sugarcoat it or BS you and will just tell you straight, so. All right, let's see what we got here. I talked briefly with Brennan and Keelan about EK law while retaining and how it was changed. How does the Republic of the East change your intent? What's the difference between in-game king and the reality of dealing with modern people?
And everybody shuts up.
Yeah, I
All right, I got name checked. I'll dive on the grenade first. So the People's Republic of the East is a concept where, for those who don't follow, is in many kingdoms, what the crown says goes. That's it. If you don't like it, we'll see you in 6 months, and that's how it is handled. I think more than most kingdoms, the Eastern populace feel empowered to make their opinions known, often via Facebook, and so I think that the way that it influences the way Keelan and I think about it is you have to socialize and to a bit democratize what you're going to do. So like when we put in, I'll call it the Silver Awards, when we changed the Kingdom Award structure, we were very intentional because Keelan and Mistress Alice are brilliant, and there was a lot of time for people to be heard before we were doing the thing, and that everybody gets to vent their spleen, and you get good feedback that changes some of your points of view, and not all. But I think that's how we managed it, was to give a feedback period and know that it's coming.
I think one of the hardest things, and it's actually, we're seeing a lot of it now from the outside, is it's got to be a really fine line between separating someone from, I'm trying to think how to word this. It's becoming difficult to separate that mundane person from that stadium person, I think, in that I'm trying to think how to word it. I don't know. I lost my train of thought.
I think what you're trying to say is that in the past, what you did in the SCA was what you did in the SCA.
Yes.
What you did at events was separate from what you did outside of events. With the current use of Facebook and all the other social media type things, what you do outside of events and what you do in your personal life is definitely dragged with you into the SCA. And very often some of the biggest problems that occur for people in the SCA are things that they've done in their personal life outside of the SCA.
Now, it's actually, I want to caveat on, I want to add on to that, because you, Thorson, myself, a couple others have been around a while and remember when there was no social media and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious, as Ozurr being, one of the younger guys in the SCA and one of the younger kings, I don't really think you had a time where you had that kind of separation, did you? I mean,
no. Like I never would have assumed that, like, so I got, like, when I got into the SCA, the main way to contact through things were through Facebook events and other things like that. So I've never known a time where it wasn't like they weren't mingled together in some fashion. So I guess it's just I just would have expected anything that I would have said or done on Facebook is now just like, now my friends list has grown by 3 times. So it's like, you just have to understand the scope of what people are viewing you for, I guess. Like, if I'm saying something, I'm not saying it to 10 people anymore. If I'm going to accept 1,000 friends on Facebook, I have to be reasonable to expect that if I say something on it, it's going to be seen by 1,000 people at least, or whatever the network of the SCA could be, because something can be shared around. So I don't tend to have a huge like profile online as it is, but I did know that anything or any time that I would say something, or that we as the Crown would have to make a statement, that it now goes out to way more people that have way more backstories that I don't have, that you have to try to be like, I think that I've done the best in writing this up to make it seem like it's going to get my point across. But no matter how much I do that, there's going to be somebody out there that is going to see it as, if not the exact opposite of what I'm trying to do, but just as not my intent. And so I guess like realizing that beforehand was a good thing to know. I'm kind of rambling at this point, but I guess that's where I get to. Sorry, I lost my trail there.
But
No,
also,
don't
it's
be-
not just us anymore. You know, it's not just us as the thousands of people that we're addressing. It's all of those people are letting the world see them for who they are as well. And that's where it gets interesting. Going back to the probe, the amount of vitriol that can be tossed around because we are sitting on our keyboard, as opposed to, would we actually say that to somebody to their face? You know, and that's not just for us, you know, who are on the throne or have sat the throne. That's just across the board. The ESCA is something. You know, and you would think in 2020 that we would have a better handle on it. And when we were on the throne, the board was, we were at an event all together and members of the board were there, and that was only a couple of years ago. And they still had no idea how to properly handle all of the social media. And, you know, the positive, wonderful. The negative, well, they still haven't figured that out yet. So it's something.
Well, that brings up a point somebody was talking to me about the other day, is how do you, like I said, it's very hard. Like, there's a big debate going on right now of, can you hold somebody responsible in the SCA for something they may have said or done, well, on Facebook, for example. And I mean, there's no winning that debate, whatever. That's absolutely no way in winning it, no matter what side you're on, because, but it's to me, it's going to be very curious to see how it's already become the norm, but how it becomes more handled, I guess. I mean, I know you guys see it as much as I do around here.
Well, I think it is, right? We can argue all day whether or not it should be, but it is. And if you decide to dig your heels in and go, well, it shouldn't be, and I'm not going to play that way, okay, but the rest of us are going to try a little bit to live in what is, and good luck catching up.
I think that the issue here is that a lot of social media is actually driving people to zeros and ones. You are this or you are that, and there is no in between. And the funny thing here is, you know, I look at all the faces on the top of the screen, and I have had political arguments with each and every one of you, and we're all still good friends. I still love and respect you. You're allowed to be wrong occasionally, myself included. But I think that is certainly a large issue, because when you suck up the media content of A is here and B is here, and it just puts everything in these extremes, we forget that, you know, we're all, you know, 0.2s and 0.3s. We're not zeros and ones. You know, we're across the spectrum, and what I think is more responsible is, one, how people demonstrate that both in society and online, in that, you know, if you can present your argument in a way that is not offensive or divisive, my opinion of you goes up. If you do act in a way that is divisive, my opinion of you doesn't go down. Generally, I will reach out to you and be like, hey, this world is messed up. Let's talk about the in-betweens, and let's talk about what you really mean and where you're actually at. And for the most part, every time I do that, I find out that these people, nobody's on these extremes, and we forget that. As royals, you're never going to be able to respond to each and every comment. You're never going to respond, be able to even know about every comment that's made about
And
you.
a lot of times you shouldn't.
Amen. Right. To the point to where my advice, you know, to Zach was delete your Facebook when he won. I don't know if he remembers it, but that was my advice. Just distance yourself. Get away from it because it'll eat your brain. But I think if we, as a group, we as a society, can actually promote the ability to actually reach out to these other people in calm, rational, you know, measured ways, and just reach out, touch it, find out what they're thinking, and then let it go. I think that's probably going to be our salvation. I know it's a wet dream, but that's where I'm at with this.
So I'm going to jump on that particular soapbox myself. One of the very first things that I heard when I joined the SCA back before some of you were born was
when did you join, Randy?
I went to my first fight practice in May of 1978.
I was 8.
Not a lot yet.
So one of the very first things that I heard and that was presented to me was that the SCA was the Middle Ages as we would have liked them to be, which included honor and courtesy, and that if we remember that and we treat everyone around us with the honor they deserve and the courtesy that you would like to be treated with, then we would go a long ways towards solving the problems that we're having with social media. Because it's so easy when you're sitting at a keyboard to type something that you feel is reasonable, and it's very easy for anyone who's out there that sees it to take it in a very negative way, whether you meant it that way or not. And maybe you did mean it that way, but maybe you didn't. And if we give each other the benefit of the doubt in those cases, chances are we'll be better off in the long run.
Okay. All right.
Sage.
Can I get some? So the next one is, can you be judged? Well, not can, but will you be judged if during your reign you don't participate in as many events as your predecessors? And
Yes.
Could you be? No. Will you be?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
you,
Yeah.
you will
Yeah.
Is there
pretty
a
much.
thing you will do that won't be judged? No.
that's you got to go on the
No.
assumption
Yeah.
everything you do is going to be judged,
Everything.
regardless. So,
And that hasn't changed.
It's like the judgment could be like from each individual event, but it's not necessarily always like intended as a bad thing, you know, but it's like that we'd really love for you to be here on this day, you know, and if you have to tell like somebody or a group that you can't, you know, like it's like even without meaning to, you know, they'll throw a disappointment towards you, which like feels bad. And you get that from all over a lot of the times because you can try to book up every single weekend that you are on the throne till when you step down, and there will still be
twice as many events that you will miss, like, and then there will still be people that come up every weekend. And, so that, whether it's there will definitely be a judgment of like, well, the Royals didn't get around as much, but I also think that there's like an individual like pressure to try to be everywhere. And I don't necessarily think it's a malicious pressure. I think it's just we want to see the crown. So that's just, no judgment on it. It's just, that's how it kind of is, I think.
And the fact that they're disappointed that you're not there is a good thing. I mean, when they start saying, hey, we'd rather not have the royalty come to an event, then we're in trouble.
True.
Yeah.
All right. You got something, Ivan?
No, just
Okay.
agreeing.
All right. The next one is, and this is a doozy. So, how do you, as former kings, intend to or already do support the voices of women without speaking for them or standing in front of them? How can you empower without overpowering? And I will be the first to admit, I don't have the slightest idea. I try to treat everybody equal, but I have not been able to break this puzzle without. I try to, it's a personality trait of mine that when I start talking about something I enjoy, fighting or whatever, I get animated, I get talking, and it can come across as over talking or hey, do this, and it's just not intended that way at all. So the only way I try is I just try to listen more than anything. Anytime we there's a Facebook group out there still is dedicated to the non-male fighters and how to assist them as chivalry and training, because I mean, different body types, this and that. I know how to throw a shot my way, but I don't know how a non-me throws it, and female fighters might have different muscle structure or throw things differently. So, and that was one of the things we started and we're discussing, and also about different struggles with non-male fighters in certain scenarios, whether it be getting bullied on the field. You got this 300-pound monster just constantly running you over and this and that, and it's not a delicate subject, but it's absolutely one that needs to be addressed, because everybody's different, but everybody's equal. You put on armor out there, I'm gonna treat you the same as everybody else. Doesn't matter if you're a duke or a brand new fighter. I want to help you. I want to do what I can to help you get better, answer your questions. But as for how to not speak over them, it's just a personality. I don't do on purpose. So, I mean, what do you guys? I'll leave it up to you guys now.
Could you restate the question for me?
Sure. Let's see. How do you, as former kings, intend to or already do support the voices of women without speaking for them or standing in front of them? How can you empower without overpowering?
I'm not, okay. You're asking questions that really don't have answers. I personally cannot empower anyone to do anything. I can allow someone the space to do something. I can encourage someone to do something. I can effectively try to put someone below me. But in the end, you're responsible for how you respond to certain things. If you look at any of the speakers, the popular speakers that are out there, they will talk about how to increase your own ability to present things. It is possible for me to prevent someone from asserting themselves by stepping on their speaking, by pushing them into the background, by doing things like that. but it's not really possible for me to do the reverse. I can try to pull someone into the foreground, but in the end, the person has to do that themselves.
Oof. So yes.
Okay, and I want to put this a little bit in perspective. I have 10 sisters.
Mm-hmm.
I know that
I
they
only
can
have 2.
put themselves in the forefront.
And I've met a couple of your sisters, and they are quite capable. Quite capable. I agree. It is, in essence, down to the individual to be responsible for their own behaviors and actions and how they go that. However, I need to add a couple of things on this. The systemic gender inequality and the way that women have been socially trained to behave puts them at a severe disadvantage.
Mhm.
I know you would agree with that. And I think that it is our job to, one, shut the hell up and let them talk. Stop mansplaining over them. And number 2, call sexist bullshit when you see it. We have a local fighter she's fantastic, right? Her learning curve is amazing. Her defense is awesome. She's scary with that damn thrust because she's got a targeting that just makes me nervous. But I have watched her with her, 3.5, 4 years of experience now. I'll have a guy with 6 months experience tell her what she's doing wrong, even after she beat him the hell up. She does not have the belief in herself to be able to actually step up on that, right? Because socially trained along those lines. She's aware of it, she knows it, she's fighting it, she's doing everything she can. I think it's our job as knights and as peers and as royals to actually step in and support there, but also to pull that 6-month guy aside and be like, dude, she schooled you and then you tried to talk to her. That ain't cool. Those are the 2 big things that I have. But the really large thing is just shut up and listen. Really, try and relate. Offer advice if asked, but if you're not asked, just shut up and listen. That's all it takes. But that's my experience. I agree in essence with what you're saying, Randy, but a couple of hot points there.
Anyone else?
I bet
Yeah.
Brennan has.
I am doing a lot of work on this topic at work. So I am intentionally working on leadership as a white guy, leading women and people of color, because that is the entirety of my reports at work. So I think there is creating spaces for them and opportunities.
Creating
like
what? Say
Randy
it
said,
again. Creating
spaces,
what? Oh,
spaces
Okay.
and opportunities, like Randy's talking about. And then I think that there's checking our biases on as an active and ongoing process. Things like like 1999, Brennan, can't believe I'm about to say this, but working on being gender neutral in your language. Things like, hey guys, or hey y'all are different, and they play different to women in a way that I certainly did not always understand.
That is a very
and
hard
they don't,
transition to make. Yeah.
and then that women are not monolith, right? And that hey guys may have none impact to a woman and significant impact to another one. And be aware that you don't know what you don't know. And then I think it is when they say something and they start getting shushed, like the woman Thorson was talking about, the 6-month guy, telling her this is what she's doing wrong, you not only shush him, but say, nope, nope, you got it right. You got it right. You were right and he was wrong, and keep going.
So if we could
That's-
like kind of collect what everyone was saying, was like we want to listen, right? Be prepared to change our own like impressions of it, and be prepared to call out people that we see as bad actors also, because just to listen alone does nothing. Like if I listen, it's like listening without hearing type thing. It's like if I'm listening but I'm not willing to change my own stance on a thing, or to realize that somebody else's opinion of it could be right, even though I have no ill intentions with my stance on something. You know, like if I think I'm teaching someone right, and a woman comes up to me and tells me this isn't working for me, this isn't the way it goes, I have to be willing to hear that and say, okay, cool, I can be wrong, and then accept that and be willing to change it, and then call out other people that aren't willing to change it on their own. Because otherwise I'm listening, but I'm not actually helping. I'm just like listening and taking notes. And if I don't ever put those notes into practice, and I don't make sure that anyone else is trying to do the things themselves, or to make the situations better, or to give more representation, then I don't think listening alone does anything. So that's just a little thing that I wanted to add on.
That's valid. Thank you.
I'll bring it up for you.
Oh, I'm good. Anyone else have an ad? No? All right.
Yeah. No.
Let's see. Whoop, where am I? Oh. What tips, where is it? What tips have you come up with to balance rain and mundane? There is no balance. No. There is no balance.
Shave off everything you can other than the rain. Like, figure out the things you have to action in the rest of your life and make sure that those get handled, because the rain will fill up every other space that you leave it.
Pretty much, literally and figuratively, just so we're perfectly clear on that one. Yeah, for 11 months to a year, your entire life is homogenized into SCA. You know, I could speak for us. You know, our routine was, you know, Thursday we were packing everything so Friday we could scoot to get to where we needed to be. Saturday was an event. Sunday was travel home time, unload. Monday work, school. Boom. Wash, rinse, repeat. Week after week after week. Throw in a mundane holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever, you know. But yeah, you know, your entire mundane life is, short of work and school with the kids, is on hold.
Especially now with social media, email, it just never stops. It's
At
never
2 o'clock in the morning, phone call for, oh my God, something happened.
So as an added piece to that, a warning to those of you who want to reign, who want to run a crown and be king or queen, make sure that you do carve at least some time out for yourself, because it can become all-consuming. And if you let it do that, it will consume you. You need to make sure that you have some time for yourself, and you need to be able to step back and, you know, recharge your batteries, whatever, to keep going and be able to be that crown at the next event.
And I agree with you on that. And at the same time, you know, for, you know, those of us that did it the once, is that you're faced with, this is our first time.
Mm-hmm.
This might be our only time. And I want to do the absolute best for everyone. And while that is an impossible thing to do, we're still going to try regardless. And that's where it gets, you know, when you step down, you think back and, God dang it, Randy, you're right. I should have taken that weekend. I should have recharged. But you just, in the moment, you're just balls to the walls. How many, you know, the way I explained it to somebody once was, I'm just the figurehead for your good time. That's my job. That's my role. Yeah, there's a business side to it, but game side is we are the figurehead for everybody else's good time, and handing out all of the recognition and as much as we can wherever we can. And that's a lot of energy. You know, you get home and you are emotionally, not just physically, drained.
So in answer to that, I say that I'm going to step back to something that was said earlier this evening, and that's where you want that friend of yours who's going to take you aside and say, hey, you're not doing as good a job as you can because you're not prepared. You haven't taken enough time for yourself. You need to relax and enjoy for a little bit, come back refreshed, and be better. And therefore, in the end, you present a better crown, a better experience for everyone out there when you're into it. And yes, I agree. I remember my first reign. There was a ton of events for a long time. Went to an event every week. You know, I think in 26 weeks of being crowned, I went to 21 events, including Penzic. So it's the kind of thing where, yeah, you want to do a good job, but if you don't take care of yourself, you start failing.
That's true.
Absolutely got to take time for yourself. All right. Here's one. It says, I'm not sure what they're referring to. So it says, what was the hardest political obstacle you had to overcome? I'm assuming it's SCA political. Yeah, I didn't have anything really that political. Well, we just had
The U.S. election of 2016. No joke. No joke. The tenor of the kingdom pre and post that November, very different. And I think it was easier to reign before that election. People felt less polarized. So that was the biggest political thing that we had to overcome.
Yeah, other than that, I don't really think we had. I mean, the only thing we had that we're actually still working on is we are trying. I don't know how widespread it is, but with like Canada pays a lot more for their memberships relative to ours because of the exchange rate and everything's done in American dollars. We campaigned really hard, and we're still actually trying to work with the bot to change that and make it into whatever the regional currency is. And I'm not exactly sure what the political hurdles are that we're faced with this, if it's purely administrative or if there's something beyond, because we can't get a whole lot of clarification on it. But that's really the only thing, and that's when it comes to political, that's the biggest thing we had, and we're still trying to work on it. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone else.
I'm just
I mean, for us, it was, yeah. I was going to say, for us, it was like basically Trimgate.
Oh, yeah.
Was probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to throw out there that bringing up that type of thing is akin to opening really old wounds, and probably not intelligent. So asking that question in a public forum, probably not going to get a lot of good responses. But sometime, if you want, find me in Kelson, and we'll sit down with you over some beer, and we will answer that question.
That's probably a good idea. All right. Let's see. To piggyback off the current discussion, which was probably half an hour ago, does social media representation make the SCA path more real? Not quite sure what they're referencing. Dimitri, are you still on here?
I think I can. I think they were talking about how our social media presence is reflected, like when we were talking before about the ESCA. I think they're thinking, does the ESCA being more prominent make you feel like your path or the path in the SCA to whatever your period would be is more of a real trip? For me personally, I've always thought that like if I wanted to be considered nightly in something, I didn't want it to be something that was considered of me on Saturday and maybe Sunday when the event let that happen. So I think that for me, you join the SCA and you try to like go down a path to make yourself more towards the ideal that you're looking for as a person. So I think that the path always was something that I used to try to affect my real life. You know, like why on Saturday am I going to try to be compassionate and more open to things if Monday through Friday I also am not? So I don't know if it makes it more real for me personally, but also social media representation has been something that has always been prevalent in the SCA for me. So that's one side of the coin there. No, it hasn't made it more real. It's always been for me. So I don't know if anyone else that, again, was from a time before has noticed maybe in their squires or anything like that, that they feel as if it is, but to me, it's just always been like that.
I think the people that actually ingest it as a lifestyle, who are picking their virtues and living by them, whether people are watching or not, whether it's Wednesday or Saturday or whatever, those are the people that make good nights. The people who are play acting, we don't catch all of them, but those are generally, they will out themselves eventually. And it doesn't matter if you're a peer or not a peer, eventually your virtue will be known. And there you go, suffer and live by your virtue.